Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the 8th Plot, where I'm going to continue reading to you from my book, Stolen Futures. If you want to know more about the book, or the universe of the Arkonauts, go to my official website, www.mdrury.co.uk. Or if you wish to get the whole series, because you like what I read to you, head to Spaceboy Books at readspaceboy.com. Let me know what you think of today's chapter in the comments. Enjoy. Chapter 2. My Salvation. Despite being underground, a virtual window was on the wall of our family's room, which was actually more like a cell, and it showed me pictures of the outside world. The sky was dark. Clouds pumped out from the destroyer, a byproduct of its engine's activities, were continuing to spread, blocking out the sun. For the last 4 years, those thick, dark clouds had spread from the Hawaiian Islands all across the world. Australia had been in darkness for 3 full years, India for 2, Africa for 1. Europe, now the most densely populated continent on the Earth, thanks to mass migrations, was the only place where the sun still sort of reached the ground. I was used to the clouds. It was the rumblings that held my focus now. Earthquakes had been spreading out from the Pacific. Here I felt them through the foundations of the base. Explosions from outside and vibrations through my feet sandwiched me between the effects of the Earth's destruction. They said this would happen, the TV experts. They said that as the weight of the world's water was removed from the plates, they would shift and buckle. The internal pressure of the Earth would suddenly find that the layer of crust it had been pushing against for millions of years was billions of tons lighter than usual. Also add that the destroyer was getting heavier and heavier with all the water it sucked up. The crust of the Earth is very thin in comparison to the rest of its layers, like a crumbly pie crust. The destroyer was sitting on a fault line as well, where the crust was already cracked. It was breaking the Earth from the outside, while the internal pressure broke the Earth from the inside. I looked at the TV that was in the corner of the room by the window. The programme was the BBC News studio, and it was nearly empty. The reporters had left their desk ages ago. The cameraman had let the camera drop a little, showing the floor of the studio. I thought I heard a faint voice say goodbye, but the audio was muffled. This made sense. The end was nigh, and so everyone had run home to be where they wanted to be. I was glad they hadn't behaved like a film cliché, where everything suddenly goes static. Why would it? Who bothers to turn off studio equipment when the world is about to end? I smiled at my pithy observation. Then the severity of my situation washed over me anew. The TV offers no new news, but I know what's happening. The 5-minute warning was going to happen when the world was 10 minutes from destruction. By now, the Hawaiian archipelago was destroyed, and the explosion was cracking the surface of the Earth in new places. Soon the destroyer would take off, and the compression wave from its engines would tear the planet to pieces. The earthquakes were getting more intense. The base would topple soon. Then the teleportation started. My salvation. My body began to tingle. I was told that this was the transmission procedure. Every atom of my body had to be identified. Then spots started to dance in front of my vision, and various body parts became disconnected. They were still there in a sense, but they were also somewhere else. Now that it was happening, I couldn't do it. I couldn't go. I gave up reason and logic and turned back to my family. My mother cried. My father reached forward. We were a family. We couldn't just be separated like this, not forever. The teleportation was still happening. Parts of me were disappearing. I could see the shock and sadness in my mum's eyes. "I don't want to go, Mum!" I cried. "You have to," she managed to stammer back. "Mummy, what's happening?" my brother asked. I reached out too, trying to wrap my arms around all 3 of them. Maybe if my hands met, they would be taken with me. The tips of my fingers were centimetres away from each other. I could feel it. "Just stretch a bit more." Then the dancing spots filled my vision completely. "No! No!" I yelled, but my voice was already teleported elsewhere. My fingertips met. My family was gone. More correctly, I was gone. I gasped and stared down at my empty hands. My eyes filled with tears. I couldn't see exactly where I was, but I knew I was no longer on the army base. The air tasted different, and there was a low-level droning noise all around me. No more explosions or earthquakes, just a cavernous drone. I could see through wet eyes that I was now in a much larger space. I heard the shuffling of feet and others crying around me. I wiped my eyes on my sleeve and then saw exactly where I was. I was on the Ark. I had never seen it before, not really. We had all been given a sort of virtual tour as part of our mission briefing. It wasn't the real thing. The Ark had already been placed in orbit by the time I was one of the chosen. Filling the Ark around me were hundreds of other children. Some were in the same state of shock that I was. Others were just staring into space. There was then a collective gasp and outbursts of crying from some of my companions. It could only be a reaction to one thing. I turned to face the Ark's window, a giant panoramic glass shield protecting us from the cold vacuum of space. Through it, I saw the Earth in its last moment of life. Thank you for listening to this chapter from Stolen Futures. Please like or comment on this video and subscribe to The Eighth Plot so you don't miss out on the next installment of this book. Goodbye.